Here's something most people never realize. No one is thinking about you as much as you think they are. Think about the last time you replayed a conversation in your head, wondering if you sounded awkward or said the wrong thing. While you were doing that, the other person was probably thinking about themselves. That's the part no one tells you. People are too busy worrying about their own lives to spend that much time judging yours. And at first, that truth feels uncomfortable, maybe even a little cold, because part of you still hopes someone is watching, someone is noticing, someone cares enough to validate you. But here's the shift, and it changes everything. No one is coming to validate you. And the moment you stop needing them to, you stop hesitating, you stop overthinking, you stop performing, you start moving freely, thinking clearly, acting without fear, and that's when something powerful happens. You become unstoppable. Part 1. The day you realize no one is watching. It doesn't hit you like a revelation. There's no dramatic moment, no sudden clarity that changes everything at once. It begins in a way that feels almost forgettable, like something you wouldn't even notice unless you stopped long enough to question it. A man walks out of a grocery store late at night. The automatic doors slide shut behind him, and the parking lot is quiet, almost empty. He's not thinking about anything important. He just needed a few things, paid, and left. But as he reaches his car, something feels off. And here's where it gets interesting. Nothing happened. No one looked at him twice. No one noticed what he was wearing, how he spoke, or how awkward that brief silence at the checkout felt. And yet, earlier that day, he had been stuck inside his own head for hours, replaying a conversation, adjusting a sentence he already said, wondering if it sounded stupid, wondering if someone noticed. But here's what most people never question. While you're replaying that moment in your head, the other person isn't replaying it at all. They're thinking about themselves, their problems, their next move. And suddenly, something doesn't add up. If people really paid that much attention to you, why does it feel like you disappear the moment you're out of sight? That's the first crack in the illusion, and it's subtle, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. Because the truth is simple and a little uncomfortable. People are not thinking about you nearly as much as you think they are. In fact, most of them are too busy worrying about how they're being perceived. That co-worker you've been analyzing all day, he's probably worried about a deadline, the person you thought you embarrassed yourself in front of. They're replaying their own moment, not yours. And this is where everything starts to shift. Not all at once, but enough to make you pause. Because if no one is really watching you, then who have you been performing for? Think about how often you hesitate before speaking, how you edit your thoughts in real time, how you replay interactions long after they're over. That wasn't random. That was you reacting to an invisible audience. And here's the part that hits harder than most people expect. That audience doesn't really exist. And this is where it gets uncomfortable. Because if no one is watching you the way you imagined, then most of your fear wasn't real. It was projected. It was assumed. It was built entirely inside your own mind. And that changes everything, because now it's not about fixing yourself to be more acceptable. It's about realizing you've been adjusting yourself for something that was never clearly there. At first, that realization doesn't feel empowering. It feels empty. Because without that imagined attention, you're left with something most people try to avoid: silence, space, and no validation. And this is the moment where most people turn back. They reach for their phone. They go back to overthinking. They try to be seen again, because even a false sense of attention feels safer than facing that emptiness. But if you don't escape it, if you stay there just a little longer, something unexpected begins to happen. The pressure starts to fade. Not completely, but enough for you to notice. You stop overanalyzing every word. You stop replaying every interaction. You stop assuming that every small mistake is being remembered by everyone else. And here's the dark truth most people never accept. No one remembers your awkward moments the way you do. They're too busy worrying about their own. And once that sinks in, even a little, your behavior begins to shift. You speak more freely, you move more naturally. You stop adjusting every part of yourself just to fit into someone else's perception, not because you've stopped caring, but because you've started seeing clearly. And then something clicks. This isn't about becoming invisible. It's about realizing you were never being watched the way you believed, and when that illusion fades, something else replaces it. Not confidence, not yet, but something quieter, something more real. Relief. Relief from the pressure of being observed. Relief from constantly managing how you appear. Relief from trying to meet expectations that were never clearly defined. And once you feel that, even for a moment, you can't go back. Because now you understand something most people spend years avoiding. You weren't being judged as much as you believed. You were just living as if you were, and that belief was controlling everything. Part 2. You were trained to need approval. Most people think they lack confidence, but that's not the real problem. And this is where it starts to get uncomfortable. Because what you're dealing with isn't insecurity, it's conditioning. You weren't born needing approval. You were trained to depend on it. A kid sits in a classroom. He raises his hand, answers correctly, and the teacher smiles. Good job. It feels small, almost forgettable. But something locks in. Approval means you're doing it right. Approval means you're safe. Approval means you belong. And your brain remembers that. So you repeat it. Say the right thing, get rewarded. Do the right thing, get accepted. Be the right person, feel valued. And here's what most people never question. That system doesn't disappear when you grow up. It just changes form. The classroom becomes your job. The teacher becomes your boss. The gold star becomes attention, praise, or even silence, and you keep playing the same game. A man finishes a presentation at work. He knows he did well. He prepared, delivered clearly, stayed focused, but instead of feeling satisfied, he looks at his boss, waiting, not for feedback, for approval. And until he gets it, something feels incomplete. And here's where it gets dangerous, because now your sense of value isn't coming from what you did, it's coming from how it's received. And then something clicks, which means the way you act today was never fully your choice. It was shaped by what got you accepted in the past. And this pattern doesn't just stay at work. It follows you everywhere. You send a message. You see delivered. Then you wait. Not just for a reply, but for a signal. Did they like what you said? Did you say too much? Did you say it the right way? And if the reply takes too long, your mind starts filling the silence. And this is where it becomes a problem, because now your emotions are being controlled by things outside of you, a response, a reaction, a look, a tone. And here's the dark truth most people never fully accept. The more you need approval, the easier you are to control. Because anyone who can give it to you can take it away. And without realizing it, you start adjusting. You soften your opinions. You hold back your thoughts. You say what fits instead of what's true. Not because you're weak, but because you were trained to survive this way. And this is the part that changes everything. The problem isn't that you want to be accepted. That's human. The problem is that you were never taught how to function without it. Which means when approval disappears, you feel lost. Silence feels heavy. Being ignored feels personal. Not being noticed feels like something is wrong. But nothing is wrong. You're just experiencing life without the system that used to guide you. And if you don't run from that, if you stay in it, something shifts. Slowly, but noticeably. You start making decisions without checking how they'll be received. You start speaking without needing reassurance. You start acting without waiting for permission. And for the first time, your actions begin to come from you, Not from fear, not from conditioning, but from choice. And that's the shift most people never reach, because it requires letting go of something that once made you feel safe. Approval. And here's the truth that sets you free. You don't lose people when you stop needing approval. You lose the control they had over you. Part 3. Expectation is the real source of pain. Most people think other people hurt them, but that's not entirely true. And this is where everything starts to flip. Because the real source of pain is expectation, not what someone did, not what someone said, but what you believed they should have done. A man sends a long message late at night. He's honest, open, vulnerable. He reads it twice before hitting send. It feels right for a moment. Then the waiting begins. He checks his phone 10 minutes later. Nothing. 30 minutes. Still nothing. An hour passes. Now his mind starts working against him. Did I say too much? Did I sound desperate? Did they lose respect? But here's what most people never stop to ask. What exactly are you reacting to? Because nothing has actually happened yet. No rejection, no conflict, no clear signal, just silence. And somehow, silence hurts. And that's the clue. Because silence doesn't hurt on its own. It only hurts when it collides with expectation. Expectation that they should reply quickly. Expectation that they should care as much as you do. Expectation that your effort should be returned equally. And this is where it becomes dangerous. Because the moment you create an expectation, you create a condition for disappointment. And here's the part that changes everything. That expectation was never agreed upon. It existed only in your mind, which means the pain you feel is not coming from them. It's coming from the gap between reality and what you thought reality should be. And this doesn't just happen in relationships. It shows up everywhere. You work hard on something. You put in the effort. You stay late, focus, do everything right. And then, nothing. No recognition, no acknowledgement, no reward. And something inside you reacts immediately. This isn't fair. I deserve more than this. And maybe you do. But that's not the point. Because the moment you expect life to respond a certain way, you give up control over how you feel. And this is where most people get stuck. They believe the problem is external, the other person, the situation, the outcome. But the Stoics saw it differently. They understood something most people never do. It's not the event that disturbs you, it's your judgment about it. And here's the hard truth. The more expectations you carry, the more fragile you become. Because now, your peace depends on things you don't control. People responding the way you want. Situations unfolding the way you planned. Outcomes matching your effort. And none of those are guaranteed, which means your emotional state is constantly at risk. And this is where the real shift begins. Not by lowering your standards, not by caring less, but by removing the invisible contracts you place on everything. You stop expecting people to behave the way you would. You stop assuming effort will always be returned. You stop tying your emotional state to outcomes you can't control. And something surprising happens. The same situations still occur. People still take time to respond. Work still goes unnoticed sometimes. Life still doesn't follow your script, but it doesn't hit you the same way anymore. Because there's no gap, no expectation, no silent agreement being broken. And here's the part most people miss. Letting go of expectation doesn't make you passive. It makes you stable. You still act, you still care, you still put in effort, but now you're no longer attaching your peace to the result. And that changes everything, because now your emotions aren't controlled by outcomes. They're anchored in your actions. And this leads to a level of freedom most people never reach. You give without keeping score. You act without needing validation. You move forward without waiting for things to feel fair. And here's the final realization. People didn't hurt you as much as you thought. Your expectations did. And once you see that clearly, you stop reacting to what happens and start controlling how it affects you. Part 4. No one cares, and that's your advantage. There's a moment most people remember, not because it was important, but because of how it felt. A woman sits in a meeting, listening as others speak. She has something to say. A good point, actually. Clear, relevant, useful. But she hesitates. And it's not because she doesn't know what to say. It's because she's thinking about how it will sound. Will it come across the wrong way? Will people judge it? Will it make her look less competent? So she waits. Someone else speaks. The moment passes. And a few minutes later, someone makes the exact same point she was about to make. Everyone nods. Good idea. And she sits there quietly, feeling something shift inside her. Frustration, regret, a quiet kind of self-doubt. And here's where it gets interesting. It wasn't a lack of intelligence that held her back. It was the assumption that she was being judged more than she actually was. Because while she was overthinking every word, most of the room wasn't even paying attention that closely. Some were thinking about their next point. Some were checking their emails. Some were just waiting for the meeting to end. And this is the part most people don't realize. The judgment you fear is often an exaggeration created by your own mind. And once you see that, something shifts. Because if people aren't analyzing you as deeply as you thought, then a lot of your hesitation loses its foundation. And this is where the advantage begins. A man walks into a small gathering. He doesn't try to impress anyone. He doesn't overthink every word. He doesn't scan the room for reactions. He just speaks naturally. Not perfectly, not strategically, just honestly. And something subtle happens. People respond differently, not because he said something extraordinary, but because he didn't seem like he was trying to control how he was perceived. And that's rare, because most people are still playing that game, trying to adjust, filter, and perform. And here's the twist most people miss. Confidence isn't about being impressive, it's about being unaffected. Unaffected by how every word lands, unaffected by whether every person approves, unaffected by the need to manage perception in real time. And that kind of presence stands out immediately. Not loudly, but unmistakably. Because when you stop trying to control how people see you, you become harder to read, harder to predict, and strangely, harder to ignore. And here's where it goes deeper. Most people spend their lives trying to avoid being judged, but the ones who stand out stop organizing their behavior around that fear. They speak when they have something to say. They act without waiting for perfect conditions. They move without constantly checking how it looks. Not because they don't care at all, but because they've stopped giving that control away. And this changes something fundamental, because now you're no longer reacting to imagined pressure. You're operating from clarity. And clarity creates speed. You make decisions faster. You recover from mistakes faster. You stop getting stuck in loops of overthinking. And here's the part most people don't expect. When you stop trying to manage how you're perceived, people actually start respecting you more. Not because you demanded it, but because you're no longer dependent on it. And that shift is visible, even if no one can explain why. Because people instinctively recognize when someone is no longer seeking approval. And that creates space. Space between stimulus and reaction. Space between what happens and how you respond. And in that space, you gain control. Not over other people, but over yourself. And that's where the real power is. Because once you stop assuming that everyone is watching, judging, and evaluating you, you stop holding yourself back. You stop shrinking your ideas. You stop delaying your actions. You stop waiting for the right moment. And here's the truth most people never fully accept. There is no perfect moment. There is no universal approval. There is no version of you that everyone will agree with. And once you stop chasing that, you start moving differently. more directly, more freely, more honestly. And that's when something changes. You're no longer trying to fit into the room. You're simply showing up in it. And that's the difference most people can feel, but very few can explain. Part 5. The more you explain, the less they respect you. There's a moment that happens more often than people admit. You say something. Maybe it's honest. Maybe it's direct. Maybe it's not even that serious. But the reaction you get isn't what you expected. Someone looks at you differently. The tone shifts, the energy feels off, and almost immediately, you feel the urge to fix it, to clarify what you meant, to explain your intention, to make sure they don't misunderstand you. So you start talking again. You add context, you soften your words, you try to guide how they see you. And here's where it quietly starts to slip. Because the more you explain, the more it looks like you're unsure of yourself. A man sends a message after an argument. At first, it's simple, clear, direct. But then he rereads it, deletes part of it, adds more, tries to make it sound less harsh, more reasonable, more acceptable. He sends it, then sends another message. Just to clarify, then another. That's not what I meant. And now something has changed, not just in the conversation, but in how he's being perceived, because instead of someone who knows where he stands, he now looks like someone trying to manage how he's seen. And people feel that, even if they can't explain it. And this is where it gets uncomfortable. Because the instinct to explain doesn't come from clarity. It comes from fear. Fear of being misunderstood. Fear of losing approval. Fear of not being seen the right way. But here's the part most people never question. Why are you trying so hard to control how someone else sees you? And more importantly, why do you believe you can? Because once someone forms an impression, you don't fully control how it evolves. You can speak clearly, you can act consistently, but you cannot force understanding. And this is where most people lose their power, not because they said something wrong, but because they tried to correct how it was received. And the more they try, the more unstable they appear. And here's the dark truth. People don't respect you more when you explain yourself. They just get used to you doing it. They expect it. They wait for it. And over time, you train them to see you as someone who needs to justify everything. And that changes the dynamic completely. Because now, instead of holding your position, you're negotiating your identity. And this doesn't just happen in conflict. It shows up in small, everyday moments. You make a decision. Then you immediately feel the need to explain why. You set a boundary. Then you soften it so it feels more acceptable. You say no. Then you add reasons to make it easier for others to accept. And each time, something subtle shifts. You move from certainty to permission-seeking. And this is where everything flips. Power doesn't come from controlling how people see you. It comes from not needing to, from being able to say what you mean and leave it there, from allowing people to interpret it without chasing their reaction. And this doesn't mean being cold. It doesn't mean refusing to communicate. It means knowing the difference between clarity and over-explanation. Clarity is simple, direct, grounded, enough. Over-explanation is anxious, layered, defensive, endless, and people can feel the difference immediately. A man sets a boundary with a friend. I can't make it tonight. That's it. No long explanation, no justification, just a clear statement, and something interesting happens. The conversation moves on. No tension, no pushback, because there's nothing to negotiate. And that's the shift most people miss. When you stop over-explaining, you stop inviting resistance. You stop opening the door for others to reshape your decisions. And slowly, people start responding differently. Not because you force them to, but because your behavior no longer signals uncertainty. And here's the final realization. You don't lose respect when people misunderstand you. You lose it when you don't trust yourself enough to let them. And once you understand that, you stop chasing clarity from others and start standing in it yourself. Part 6. When nothing controls you, you become unstoppable. There's a point where something changes. Not on the outside, but internally. And it's subtle at first. A man wakes up early, sits at his desk, and starts working. No one asked him to. No one is watching. No one is checking if he shows up or not. And for a long time, that used to bother him, because if no one sees the effort, what's the point? But this time, something feels different. He doesn't reach for his phone. He doesn't check if anyone noticed. He doesn't think about how it looks. He just starts. And this is where it begins. Because when you remove the need for attention, you remove the hesitation that comes with it. And here's what most people never realize. The need to be seen is what slows you down. It makes you question your actions. It makes you delay decisions. It makes you wait for the right moment. That never comes. But when that need disappears, so does the friction. And this is where everything starts to accelerate. You stop waiting for approval. You stop explaining your moves. You stop adjusting your behavior based on how it might be perceived. And suddenly, your actions become clean, direct, unfiltered. And here's where it gets interesting. At first, it doesn't feel powerful. It feels quiet, almost invisible. Because you're no longer chasing recognition. You're no longer measuring yourself through reactions. You're no longer playing the same game. And this is where most people misunderstand the shift. They think becoming unstoppable means becoming loud, dominant, or aggressive. But that's not what it is. It's the absence of resistance, the absence of internal conflict, the absence of needing something from the outside before you move. And once that's gone, there's nothing left to slow you down. A woman sits at her desk late at night, finishing something she's been putting off for weeks. Not because she suddenly feels motivated, not because someone is expecting it, but because she no longer needs a reason that comes from outside of her. She just decides and follows through. And this is the difference. Before, action depended on feeling ready. Now, action comes first. Before, decisions were filtered through doubt. Now, decisions are made and adjusted later. And here's the twist most people never see coming. When you stop needing people to care, people start noticing you more. Not because you tried to stand out, but because you stopped trying to fit in. And that shift is impossible to fake. Because it's not about what you say, it's about what you no longer need. You don't need validation, you don't need reassurance, you don't need every outcome to go your way. And that creates something rare. Stability. You don't react as quickly. You don't collapse under pressure. You don't chase every opportunity just to feel significant. You move with intention, and people feel that, even if they don't understand it. And this is where real control appears. Not control over people, not control over situations, but control over yourself, your reactions, your decisions, your direction. And once you have that, there's very little that can disrupt you. Because now, your actions are no longer tied to what happens around you. They're anchored in something internal, something steady, something independent. And that's what makes you unstoppable. Not that nothing affects you, but that nothing controls you. And once you reach that point, you don't need the world to notice, because you're no longer waiting for it. What you've seen in this video isn't just a shift in mindset. It's a complete shift in how you relate to the world. You started by realizing something uncomfortable, that most people aren't thinking about you as much as you imagined. Then you saw how deeply you were conditioned to seek approval, how expectations silently create your pain, and how trying to control how others see you only takes away your power. And in the end, you reached something most people never fully experience, the freedom that comes when nothing external controls you. But this only matters if you apply it. So the next time you catch yourself overthinking, waiting for validation, or explaining too much, pause, notice it, and choose differently, even in a small way. That's how this shift becomes real. Not all at once, but through repeated awareness. Thank you for staying with me through this. If this resonated with you, take a moment to reflect on it and maybe share it with someone who needs to hear it. And I'll see you in the next video.